everybody, it's Sally. I'm here at this time of chaos, cataclysms and confusion to help people come back to the oneness within themselves, each other and the planet. So today I am speaking about oneness because, and from a shamanistic point of view, and about how to realign with the higher dimensions when you feel you're getting pulled back down into the third dimension. For those of you who don't understand dimensions, we are basically 100% simulation, holographic reality, and we all have different perspectives depending on what lenses we're looking out of. So if we're looking out of a lens of being a victim in life and scared of doing anything and feeling like other people have power over us all the time, then that would be quite a disempowered perspective and a lower dimension of fear and disempowerment. But if we are living from a higher dimension, we would live in a place of joy, peace, love and freedom, and that would be considered something like maybe to be in the fifth dimension and higher, where you have the perspective of all is one and you are enlightened. And if you just look at this, and there's the van, enlightened on it. It says enlightened on that van, and you would be able to understand from a higher perspective. As I was walking down here, I saw a kite flying, a kite, like a bird of prey, and it was flying over the hills. And I thought, I'll make a video about the fact that we need to stay in oneness, that we need to stay detached and the observer of our situation in order for us to be able to understand the entire situation as one and not get into duality, which means them against us mentality, good and bad, right and wrong, etc. If we can look at it as a big game of players of a chess game, like dark and light players, then we can see what's happening and we can rise above it. All right, so that's what I'm here to do, to try and help people to rise above the story which is taking place right now. There was a story related to the Second World War, a story where it became a world of propaganda, where Hitler, who depending on your perspective was either the best and most influential and successful leader of all time, or he was the most terrible and biggest tyrant of all time, depending on your perspective, your beliefs. All right, either way we have to ascend and overcome this idea that we come from any one perspective. We have to look at it as an observer and understand the story and read the story like it's a book or a film, come to the end of the book or the film and go, okay, that's another story. What's the next story? Now, I'm not saying be dispassionate or empathic towards the people who went through the Holocaust and died. I'm just saying that unless you want to get caught up in another Holocaust or another situation of war, then we have to remember to stay observer and be objective about our reality, not get pulled into the chaos, pulled into the story, and start becoming people in the story. Because once you start taking sides, you're in the story. And then you don't see it from the bird's eye perspective. You're not enlightened, like it says on the van. Now, at this time, many people who have experienced an awakening or an ascension, they are finding that they're unable to hold that higher perspective of oneness because of the things that are happening in the world and the way that people are responding towards the people who are awake and can see the big picture. And that's the real challenge. For the people who are awake and can see the big picture, it's really important that they stay, as it says in the Bible, on the rooftops, don't go back into the house for your coat. Stay on the mountain, don't go back down. If you're up there in that high perspective, flying high above the story, looking down, seeing it, observing it, witnessing it, but not getting involved in it, then that's a really good place to be, because that's your God consciousness. You are enlightened and you're able to rise above it. You're able to ride the waves of the storm. You're able to be in a place of love and stay in a place of peace and oneness in the heart. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, and you don't even know that there is a duality or that there is a storm, then you're in the story. And I'd like to say there's no right or wrong, but the thing is, there is chaos and there is confusion and there is cataclysms. And when people are not observing the story, when they're in the story, they're creating the story. So if you want to be a creator of peace, love and oneness and joy, you have to step up higher, see it from a higher perspective of the whole big story, looking at it with dispassion, so without getting passionate about either side, and understanding what is happening, being able to, like I was going to say like a journalist, but they're all a bit biased, like a journalist should be, completely unbiased, and explaining the story and informing people and giving them choice as to what they want to experience. So that's what I'm here to do. Look at it from the higher perspective, explain what I see coming from a shamanistic point of view, because I'm very intuitive. I speak to the God consciousness. I know what's coming. Well, rather, I know what I've been shown, and I know what the agenda is for the earth at this time. And so I'm encouraging people to step into the awareness of where they are right now, where we are right now in the world, and what the potential is for separation, for duality, for war. Because, you know, when you ride a them and us situation, and when you're taking part in propaganda, like you're actually listening to it and becoming one with that propaganda of a side against another side, you are creating a war. Okay, so people, be aware of it. Just be aware of propaganda. If you are thinking there's a them and us situation, I'm right, they're wrong. If you're thinking that, you know, that there is a reason not to help somebody just because of their personal beliefs, you know, if you cannot find love in your heart for people, then you are part of that them and us duality consciousness. And that's really all I wanted to talk about. The Ascension is about rising higher. It's about seeing both sides of the story. It's about knowing the agenda. It's about not taking sides, but being observing it, moving into freedom, which means not listening to any propaganda from anyone, but going with your own inner truth. That is the truth of the God consciousness within you. God is love. So my love consciousness within me tells me there is no separation, there is no duality, there is no war. Everything is one. It's all a story. I'm not taking sides in that story. I'm just merely being a journalist. There is an agenda to mind control the population. This is my journalism. I am observing and I am experiencing what I see in my world around me through my higher intuition and through my clairaudience and clairvoyance, and I'm sharing that with the world because that's what my mission is here, to be a messenger. And so it's really important that if we wake up our higher senses and really listen to the world and where it's going and what we see in our intuition, in our inner mind, what we see in our inner mind, and our hearts and what we feel in our gut, okay? That's our intuition, that's tuition internally. That's what guides us internally, what guides us towards truth, which is based on love. Or not, depending on, you know, whether you're a robot or not, because some people, perhaps they're soulless and they're robots. But, you know, I'm talking to the people who have a heart and a soul, and they want to maintain their heart and their soul and their connection to God, the oneness, the infinite intelligence. Because the agenda of mind control is to connect, or rather disconnect the consciousness from the infinite consciousness. It is to connect the consciousness to an artificial consciousness, and there will be no more of that consciousness because that will be destroyed. And that's the story. That's what happens at the end of the story. So I'm merely here as a journalist to give the message, to show people and tell people what's happening, and then they make their own decision. I also need to give the evidence, which I'm preparing to do. So there is evidence, and it's there, and it's being given to the public because there is an agenda, and it's an opt-out society. So if you are not aware of it, if you're not reading the information, and if you're not informing yourself, and you don't opt out, then you're in. You're in the duality, you're in the propaganda, you're in that consciousness of being in the story, unless you inform yourself and move out of the story. You see the story for what it is, You choose not to take sides. You choose to be a free being and not be brainwashed or mind controlled. Just free, a free consciousness, a free spirit. And then you can stay above the story. You can ride the wave. You don't have to get stuck in the muck. You can just see it, observe it, and just let it go. You know, it'll probably happen anyway. But do you want to be a part of it? Or do you want to be a free consciousness and a free spirit, like that kite that's flying, circling over and looking down and having that aerial view, seeing everything, being an observer of it, not getting involved. So that's what I wanted to talk about. That's part of the oneness. That's the Enlightenment, as you can't see it, but it's written there on the van, Enlightenment. As I was walking here, apart from seeing the kite, I also saw a van called Beeline. And the bee is a sacred creature, obviously. If it weren't for the bees, this environment, the dimensional holographic environment would not live. And we all know that we're having to save the bees at the moment. The bee represents the sovereign, kings and queens, carry the royal blood in this dimension. They are the ones who have access to the higher awareness. And you want to make a beeline, if you're one of these people, to the highest dimension. And the highest dimension is the dimension of awareness, of being the observer. It's the God consciousness. It's a 50,000 foot view. It's the 12th to the 15th dimension. It's take a beeline. Don't meander along the paths looking at different spirits and tarot cards. And well, I mean, you can if you like, but God showed me that that's just takes a long time to get to where you need to be. A beeline to the highest dimension means going into the heart, going into love, and being around people who understand love and oneness. And that's pretty much all I have to say today. You can study different scriptures of all different cultures and beliefs, because they all talk about love and oneness. And when you marry the two together, the dark and the light, you'll find that the light overcomes the dark, overcomes the shadow, and the light is enlightenment. And it's not about personal enlightenment, it's about God consciousness enlightenment, the creator, protector and destroyer of this dimension. Because if we're not connected to that, then we're not going to be able to get out to move to the next dimension, the next story. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm just doing my best to try and explain things as I see them. And I see them from a very high dimension. And therefore, you know, I can only speak to people at their level of consciousness. Therefore, if you don't understand this, let it go. People who understand oneness, understand ascension, understand rising up and looking at everything from the 50,000 foot view and not wanting to attach, but just to observe and be an energy of love in the world and peace and freedom, they will understand. So that's what I'm giving out today. Lots of love, light and truth to you all, and take care. Bye.